Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit. Make a plan. Be informed today.
Hi, I'm Kevin from Chatsworth, offering you a taste of New Orleans since 1986. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35. Our city, our channel.
Handelman, will you please sit down? Thank you. All right, welcome to Los Angeles City Council. Today is Friday, August 28th, 2015. We are live and streaming on the internet as well and on Channel 35. So welcome, colleagues. And Mr. Clerk, if we can please call the roll. But before we do, if we can ask everybody in the council chambers, shh, please find a seat. Shh. If we can have everybody to please ask them to find a seat or move your conversations to the back of the room, if you could. And if we can clear the center of the aisle as well, we'd really appreciate it. So with that, Mr. Clerk, if we can please call the roll.
Blumenfield, Bonner, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Fuentes, Harris, Dawson, Weezer, Carrasco, Corian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rue, Wesson. 13 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Okay, Mr. Blumenfield moves. Mr. Bonin seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Okay, Mr. Kretz moves. Mr. Kokorian seconds. Let's go ahead then. Let's go ahead, if we could, please, Mr. Clerk, and direct our attention to the agenda.
Very good, sir. Mr. President, there are recommendations to continue items 1A, F, K, and M to October 6th.
And that'll be the order without objection. Not a problem. Before we do that, though, Councilwoman Martinez, did you wish to say anything?
To it.
Oh. Okay. Well, all righty then. With that, that'll be the order then. And let's go through the other items then.
Very good, sir. Item 1 is an item noticed for public hearing. When considering that item, there are recommendations to receive and file items 1H and O in as much as the liens have been paid, and item 1P in as much as the lien has been partially rescinded and paid. We do, however, have cards on this item.
Okay, we'll go ahead and hold that item then for cards. If we can look at the next items, please.
Very good, sir. Items 2 through 11 are items for which public hearings have been held. The committee report for item 5 has been submitted and circulated for council's consideration.
Mr. Fuentes.
Item 1Q, I'm sorry that I'm late on that, for 2 weeks.
1Q for 2 weeks. That'll be the order without objection. 1Q for 2 weeks. That should take us to about September 18th. Which one? 1Q.
1Q, sir. That 2 weeks brings us to September 11th, sir.
Even better. All right. So that'll be the order. Okay, great. Thank you. And the remaining items, I believe we are on now 2 through 11?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? We're going to let's hold number 5 and let's hold number 8. 5 we can vote on. Let's not hold number 5, actually. That's been resolved. Receive and file on 4 is a receive and file. We'll hold 8 on the desk and we'll open the roll on those remaining items. Colleagues, unless anybody has a special. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the roll. Close the roll. And tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
And recalibrate the mic. All right. With authority. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, items 12 through 16 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, those are being considered now, colleagues, before us. We'll open the roll on consideration and close the roll and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
That was for consideration only. Now, those items are before us. So, Mr. Koretz.
Is item number 13 being voted on today?
It looks like there's a referral to move that back to Rules Committee.
Okay. If that be the case, then let it go.
Let me reconfirm that with the clerk. There's a referral to send 13 back to the Rules Committee.
Yes, sir. Would you like to do that now without
We'll go ahead and do that now. That'll be the order without objection. And that will not be voted on today, nor will there be public comment. So we'll go ahead and refer that back to Rules. That brings us now then 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17, I believe.
Mr. President, we do have cards on those remaining items.
Of course, and I can guess which ones. Okay, colleagues, do we have any members that wish to call those special as well? They are held on the desk for cards. Are there any members that wish to add their names to those? Seeing none, that's fine. We'll hold those as well. Next item, please.
On the continuation agenda, item 17 is an item for which a public hearing has been held.
Okay, 17, it has been held. We'll go ahead and open the roll on 17. No? Oh, no. That has not. Oh, well, you know what? Let's get ahead and hold that as well. So we'll hold 17 on the desk. Okay. Next items, please.
Mr. President, would you like to recess the regular and go into the special meeting?
Yes, please. We'll go ahead and do that at this time.
Very good, sir. Blumenfield, Bonabuz, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Fuentes, Harris, Dawson, Weezer, Koretz, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rue, Wesson. 14 members present, sir.
Great, thank you very much. And that'll take us to items 18 and 19, I believe. 18, actually, we've got a request to continue that until Tuesday. So let's go ahead and continue that item, Mr. Clerk, until Tuesday without objection. That'll be the order. So there will be no public comment on that either, and that'll be held over until Tuesday. That brings us to item 19. Hey, hold that, please.
And Tuesday is September 1st, sir.
September 1st. All right. And item 19 then. Call that special, please. And called special, and we have cards on that as well. And that's the only thing left on the special, so we'll come back to that later as well. Okay, let's go ahead and go into item 19 then for cards. Before we do that, John Walsh.
Item 19. This is HollywoodHighlands.org, J. Walsh Confidential. Consideration of resolution, submission of a bid, not to the, this is a different kind of bid from the Olympics. This is to the National League of Cities, Congress of Cities and Exposition. This is the kind of low-level bidding that you should be doing. This will cost us practically nothing compared to an Olympic bid, which would cost us millions upon millions of dollars in cost overrun. And that's why we're in favor of the League of City bid and against any other big-time bid.
Thank you. And final speaker on 19, Herman. I'm going to remind the speakers that fill out their cards before you start your time. You will stay on the subject matter. You will stay on what is on the agenda. We repeat these rules virtually every. Your time hasn't started yet. I'm repeating the rules that every time we start, that we remind you of this, and we often have to stop you mid-speech to remind you to stay on the agenda since you fill out cards on virtually every agenda item on every committee and council every single day. You know the rules. Stay on the agenda item, please. Mr. Herman.
I'd like to introduce Mr. B. He's here to talk about our First Amendment right under agenda item 19 regarding the resolution for relative 2018 National League of Cities, Congress, and Cities in next position. What do you think, Mr. B?
Fuck you, Englander. We're going to talk about the situation here of National League cities because you're such a racist running for county super.
Okay, you're off subject again. That's your second warning. We started at the beginning.
And recommend that you not hold this league and host it because just like the Olympics, you're not prepared for it. A lot of people are going to get injured and harmed by your action for running for county supervisor.
Okay, off subject again. Thank you very much. So you forfeit your 2 minutes there on time because I've warned you 3 times now. So that's 2 minutes towards your clock for the day. Seeing no other cards on this item, Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you. This brings us back to regular scheduled programming. This item before you, colleagues, is a resolution that will allow the LA Tourism and Convention Board to submit a bid to host the 2018 Congress of Cities Conference and Exhibition for the National League of Cities. And as a board member of the NLC, I'd be honored to host officials from cities across the country and show them that Los Angeles is the new Los Angeles of the 21st century. The last time we hosted the NLC conference was in 1999. And since then, as we know, downtown Los Angeles and other parts of the city has been completely transformed with new attractions, hundreds of additional hotel rooms, and new transportation options. In fact, GQ recently declared downtown LA to be the next great American city. Now, there are costs associated with hosting this event, which the LA Convention and Tourism Board estimates at just over $1 million. But I'm committed to seeking private dollars to fundraise for this effort, looking at 100% private financing of this commitment. Today's action only authorizes us to bid for the conference. The council will have an opportunity to review detailed budgets and the final agreement prior to committing. Patty McDermott from the LA Tourism Convention Board is also here if you have any questions from each and every one of you. If you do, I ask for an aye vote, and this will give us an opportunity, if we win the bid, to showcase our great city to other colleagues across the country. I ask for an aye vote. Hopefully we can support this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Joe, this NLC is phenomenal, and being on the steering committee for public safety for NLC as well, I know a lot of us, in fact, participate and talk about, not just learning from best practices. A lot of the things that have come back from NLC and partnering with them, not just on key things that are happening in the federal government and Congress and transportation and other elements and things we're all working on, but learning from best practices and what other cities are doing. And certainly I know many of us have participated for years in that, and it's just a phenomenal organization, and bringing them here to Los Angeles once again. When was the last time it was done? 1999. That'd be great. So with that, colleagues, we'll go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
15 ayes.
Forthwith. That'll be the order per Mr. Buscaino's request without objection. Thank you so much.
Mr. President, do you wish to adjourn the special and return to the regular?
Yes, let's go ahead and do that now. Thank you.
Very good, sir.
All right. Do we need to take the roll for the regular again?
No,
We're
sir.
good to go. And let's go ahead and go into presentations. I understand that Councilwoman Nury Martinez has a presentation. You're ready for yours? The floor is yours. Thank you so much. Let's put our hands together. The big welcome for Councilwoman Nury Martinez, and say hello, good morning, and thank you so much.
I just got injured with the cert, but thank you. Okay. Can we just move this? We're just going to get rid of this. All right. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President, for the warm welcome this morning. Good morning, colleagues. Today, I'm proud to welcome Christine Simmons, the President and Chief Operating Officer from the Los Angeles Sparks, to our City Council. In a city with nearly 2 million women and girls, where 25% of them are under the age of 18, it is incredibly important that there be a positive female role models for our youth. On Women's Equality Day, I noted that our daughters deserve to have positive role models that they can look up to here in our city. And I often say we cannot be what we cannot see. In 1996, young girls were finally able to aspire to become professional basketball players when the NBA Board of Governors approved the development of the WNBA. And that's when the Los Angeles Sparks was born. As a women's professional basketball organization, the Sparks understand the importance of empowering and celebrating women. This year, the Sparks developed the We Are campaign that celebrates women that live, work, and are pioneers, leaders, and activists, teachers, and role models here in our communities. Throughout the season, fans were able to nominate women who are deserving of being We Are Women honorees. This weekend, the Sparks will celebrate the strong women that make up the city by organizing the We Are Women Festival here at Staples Center. This event they will host a pre-game wellness and empowerment fest that will offer resources including educational services and health and wellness of mind, body, and spirit. In addition, as part of this day-long celebration of women, they will be also looking at breaking the WNBA attendance record by hosting 22,000 fans on Sunday. During halftime, they will also be recognizing 8 We Are Women honorees, which include Angelique Gigi Sotoso, who is the Executive Director of the Women's Transitional Living Center, Karen Brodkin, the President of Business Affairs of William Morris IMG Worldwide, LaFonza Butler, the President of SCIU ULTCW, Christine Demick, a litigation attorney, Michelle Collins, a founder of Persona Program and Mom Suite, Maria Cardona, a community volunteer, Keita Bozzi, the President and Executive Director of Star Inc., and Betsy Butler, the Executive Director of the California Women's Law Center. What an amazing group of women that are all working towards empowering our community. On behalf of the city, I'd like to commend and congratulate the Los Angeles Sparks for not only their work off and off the court, but also wish them a successful event on Sunday, August 30th. And now, colleagues, I'd like to introduce Christine Simmons, the President and COO of the Los Angeles Sparks, to say a few words. Yeah! So proud of you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Martinez, and thank you all. We are so excited about this Sunday. We actually have filled already Staples Center to the rafters. And in this showing of empowerment and economic empowerment, more importantly, driving dollars to the city, all the while showing the importance of showing our little girls what they can be both on and off the court. I commend the City Council for recognizing this day as we continue to contribute as women in the community, on the court, as mothers, as philanthropists, as executives. So again, thank you for this honor, and we hope to see you all out Sunday, August 30th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And on behalf of the City Council, I want to give them a resolution on behalf of all of us and our mayor. Congratulations, and I hope you have a wonderful We Are Women event on Sunday afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, let's give them all another big round of applause. Thank you so much. Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too just want to salute the Sparks and the President. I had a chance to join Christine and some of her family members at a game a couple weeks ago where we won. The Sparks won, I should say. But just want to thank you for your leadership. And I think this program is an example of how the team is really reaching out, reaching down, helping little girls and big girls. And so we just appreciate your leadership and the continued success of the team in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Anyone else? All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. The next presentation, Councilmember Mitchell Farrell. The floor is yours.
Mr. President, in the meantime, there's been a request to continue item 1G to September 11th, sir.
Okay, for 2 weeks. That'll be the order without objection for 1G. Thank you so much.
Excuse me. Mr. President, colleagues, standing among this group with me today are 4 incredibly courageous women: Rochana Sussman, Kicha Phimon Singh, Kanit K. Renu, and Wako Sengtarat. These 4 women were freed from slavery 20 years ago in El Monte when they were being held against their will with 68 other women in a case that brought international attention and shame to the fact that we have slavery among us in present-day United States. With us also today is a hero and someone who has really changed the way we look at this very important, tragic issue, and that is the Thai CDC founder and president, Chansey Martorell. They all deserve a big round of applause. I want to thank you for the opportunity to recognize the Thai Community Development Center, Thai CDC, as we commemorate the 20th anniversary of the El Monte Thai garment slavery case. On August 2nd, 1995, 72 Thai nationals were found working in conditions of slavery in a makeshift garment factory consisting of a row of residential duplexes in El Monte, just east of where we stand. Although the case did not occur in our city, it is known as the first case of modern-day slavery in the United States since we abolished slavery 150 years ago. It would serve as a wake-up call for the world to the global phenomenon of human trafficking and modern-day slavery, and would begin the anti-trafficking movement in the United States with the Thai Community Development Center as its pioneer. The case would also lead to the passage of California laws to reform the garment industry and end sweatshop abuses through independent monitoring and a code of conduct, and then eventually to the Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protection Act of 2000, passed by the United States Congress, later known as the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act. It is an honor to recognize the Thai Community Development Center today as we look back at this shameful event that happened in our midst. The Thai CDC provided the workers with emergency relief and resettlement assistance that included housing, food, clothing, and basic necessities. These women have transcended this incredible tragedy and are prosperous, functioning members of society, adding to all of our quality of life with what they do and what they've been through. While providing their daily care, they also had to help them overcome the trauma of their enslavement. They had to teach the workers how to function in the outside world as free and independent individuals who are able to think and act for themselves. Although Thai CDC became a pioneer organization in the anti-trafficking movement, the El Monte case was just the tip of the iceberg as the Thai CDC came to the aid of 400 more Thai victims of trafficking in another half dozen more cases over the past 20 years. Their work continues. These included a sex trafficking case and Thai workers trafficked for domestic work, welding, and agriculture. This month, the Thai CDC commemorated this significant milestone by holding a series of commemorative events and programs titled The Road to Freedom, a journey of resilience and hope, that consisted of a benefit concert at Hollywood and Highland, an education awareness and action symposium on anti-trafficking, a screening of the documentary Ghost Factories by filmmakers Alex Murillo, Adam Scott, and Gennaro Carpio at the Museum of Tolerance, introduction to the Wage Theft Prevention Bill and display of survival quilts at the Museum of Tolerance throughout the month of August. I want to thank you again, Chansey, and the Thai CDC for your tireless commitment to fight for victims of human trafficking and help them recover and build their lives in the United States. Till this day, the Thai CDC continues to have an impact in community through their self-sufficiency services, family services, housing and community, economic development, and youth services. They advance the social and economic well-being of low and moderate income individuals in the greater Los Angeles area. I am honored to have them be a part of the fabric of the incredible 13th District that I am so privileged to represent here in the city of Los Angeles. Their influence spreads far beyond our borders. Therefore, colleagues, I ask that you join me as we recognize the Thai Community Development Center with a certificate of commendation signed by all of us on the 20th anniversary commemoration of the El Monte garment slavery case, and for their selfless commitment and dedication to the betterment of our community.
Ladies, thank you. Mr. O'Farrell. Councilmember O'Farrell, I'm going to thank you for bringing in just these incredible people with such bravery in what they've gone through as well. And we all know that human trafficking, while this case was 20 years ago, continues to this day in our very neighborhoods and our communities here in Los Angeles. So let's make sure that we continue to fight that good fight each and every day and recognize these true inspirational leaders and heroes and everything that they do. And thank you again for bringing them before us here today to recognize them as well. So let's give them another big round of applause.
Mr. President, we will hear from Chancy Martorell of the Thai CDC. Chancy.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Councilman Mitch O'Farrell. Thank you, Honorable Council persons of City of Los Angeles, for supporting the Thai Community Development Center by celebrating with us the victories of the survivors of the El Monte Thai garment slavery case. Today, this month, we celebrate the 20th anniversary of their liberation and 20 years in the struggle against modern-day slavery. And as Councilman Mitch O'Farrell mentioned, to mark this historic occasion, the past month, Thai CDC had hosted a series of commemorative events and programs with this unifying theme, The Road to Freedom, a Journey of Resilience and Hope. Now, when we revisit the events that took place back on August 2nd, 1995, what we have to remember is that Thai Community Development Center, along with state and federal agencies, had to go in and liberate 6 dozen Thai garment workers from this makeshift garment factory located in the city of El Monte, where they were held against their will there for as long as 7 years in what became known, as Councilman Mitch O'Farrell said, the first case of modern-day slavery in the United States. These 72 nationals were recognized as the first victims of what is known now as human trafficking. At the time, the term human trafficking had never even been used. No one had any idea how serious or widespread a problem it was, or how to fight this growing scourge on humanity and treat its victims. Through our efforts here at Thai CDC, the nation's first modern-day slavery victims received immediate relief and help in pursuing redress and restitution, spawning an anti-trafficking movement that you now see today, and led to the founding of Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking in 1998, which we co-founded, and as Councilman Mitch O'Farrell mentioned, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act passed by U.S. Congress in 2000. But unfortunately and sadly, I'm here to tell you, though that may have been the wake-up call, it was just the tip of the iceberg, as Councilman Mitch O'Farrell mentioned, because the El Monte case, sadly, is really a reflection of how Thais and Thai nationals continue to disproportionately be impacted by trafficking, sadly, because we seem to represent the largest number of cases in the U.S. for a relatively small community compared to other Asian ethnic immigrants. So that's why Thai CDC has had to be there at the forefront and become involved in many of these precedent-setting cases in the United States. Well, as we mark this 20th anniversary occasion, we are also trying to reclaim an important part of Thai American history for the Thai community by establishing a clear and fact-based narrative of the El Monte case, which is more complete, more inclusive, and focuses on the actual contribution of all its participants in the spirit of establishing a true people's history and not just a sensational media event that focuses on idealized accounts. We want to remind people that we need to continue to bring accountability and justice to this economic system that has grown dependent on, unfortunately, the exploitation of defenseless and disenfranchised labor force to churn out increasing profits of unprecedented proportions. So I have to also now introduce to you an extraordinary individual who is the exemplary example of the extraordinary transformation, an example of transcendence that took place among the victims who went from voiceless, powerless, timid individuals to now agents of social change, and who have the incredible task now of really being out there in the forefront and fighting and continuing the struggle against human trafficking. And that is Rochana Sussman, who is the spokesperson for the El Monte workers and has been so for these 20 years and going to testify before Congress, before state legislatures. She actually really needs no introduction, but since her liberation, she has become this inspiring activist, an entrepreneur, a health educator, and philanthropist. And her remarkable transformation is an inspiration for all. So let me help welcome Rochana Sussman to the podium, and she will say a couple of words. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. President. And I would like to thank Councilman O'Farrell that recognizing Thai CDC as a community leadership partner in our community to put the right force to end slavery. And as a survivor, I will do everything in my power to ensure that my voice would be heard, would be a good example forever. And thank you so much for letting me be part of this. It's such a great honor. Even though it's 20 years ago, I still have that memory that I was forced to work as a slave. And I know it's a bad news in the backyard. You don't want to hear all of this, but it is happening today, happening right now. And thank you so much for letting me be part of this. And I hope you all in our neighborhood can help and join me. I can't do it alone. I don't think Thai CDC can do it alone. I think he can't do it alone either. It's have to take all of us to make the right force and have all the right answer to the right question. As a slavery, I want it to end. Thank you very much.
Welcome. You have Mr. Rue, Councilmember Rue, on the queue.
O'Farrell. I really want to thank Councilmember O'Farrell for bringing this presentation to us today. And Chancey, you've been a dear friend for a long time. And thank you so much for this. I can't believe it's been 20 years since this has happened. And I remember I was at UCLA as a sophomore, I believe, first learning about this. I remember the pictures in the newspapers with barbed wire on the fences. And I remember my TA, John DeLauro, who was working on this issue, who is no longer with us today, who passed. But I remember him coming to our class and telling us about it, and me as a student, a college student, feeling helpless. Now I'm at the city council. I mean, it's because of issues like this that I learned growing up that, I wanted to become a champion for social justice. So I really want to thank you, council member, for bringing this to the city council today. And thank you, Chancey, for all your hard work. And thank you to the heroes who are standing next to you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Harris Dawson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I want to also join in thanking Councilmember O'Farrell for bringing the Thai CDC to us today and reminding us about the struggle against slavery and the movement against human trafficking that you all and CAST and so many have kept alive. And I want to thank all of you heroes who've not only been liberated, but you keep the cry for liberation for others in slavery at this moment while we're in this room. We thank you for keeping attention on them and keeping the movement alive so that we can make Los Angeles a place that is free from slavery and exploitation forevermore. Thank you all so much.
No, thank you very much. Again, let's give them a big, big round of applause. Once again, thank you so much. Now we have Councilmember Mike Bonin for another presentation.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President, for acknowledging me. I rise today to celebrate a fantastic educational institution that touches not only my district, but also Mr. Price's and Mr. Cedia's district. Mount St. Mary's University, newly dubbed University, was founded in 1925 by the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet, and they are celebrating their 90th year of providing phenomenal education to young women in Los Angeles. Their campus in Brentwood in the Santa Monica Mountains is home to the original women's college, and that's the oldest women's leadership program in the western United States. And they offer the traditional baccalaureate degree programs there. That program is celebrating an impressive 40 years in existence. Mount St. Mary's is known nationally for its research on gender equity, its innovative health and science programs, and its commitment to community service. Their great work academically and socially has not gone unrewarded. They have been named to the President's Higher Education Community Service Honor Roll each year since 2008. And last year, Money Magazine ranked Mount St. Mary's as the #1 university in the nation for colleges that add the most value. The Mount is consistently recognized as one of the most diverse colleges in the nation, as well as one of the best women's colleges. Earlier this year, Best Colleges Magazine's ranking rated Mount St. Mary's a top 50 school nationwide in terms of campus diversity, and College Choices rankings listed Mount St. Mary's as the #10 women's college in the entire United States. They are committed to providing access to higher education of all women. More than half of their students are the first in their families to go to college, and 82% of their students are women of color. They play a vital role in Los Angeles' economy. The university students tend to come from the region and stay in the region, including about 5,500 alums who currently work throughout Southern California in just about every occupation imaginable. This coming March, Mount St. Mary's will publish its 5th annual report on the status of women and girls in California. It's a comprehensive and groundbreaking compilation that continues to shed light on all of the issues that face women and girls throughout the state of California. And in this academic year, 2015 to 2016, Mount St. Mary's is launching a new Center for the Advancement of Women to serve the community as a resource and a hub for research, education, and action on issues that affect women and girls. Their research and advocacy on behalf of women extends to this hometown. This year, they partnered with our own Los Angeles City Commission on the Status of Women and with Mayor Garcetti's office to create a 5-part report on the status of women and girls right here in Los Angeles. That final research was revealed just 2 days ago on August 26th on Women's Equality Day. The report was created to serve as a touchstone for the city and its officials and inspired the executive order that Mayor Garcetti issued just 2 days ago. They also offer a women's leadership conference that brings together local leaders from various fields, and the program is called Ready to Run. It's presented in partnership with the Center for American Women in Politics at Rutgers. I am very proud to celebrate their exceptional educational institution and to thank them for everything they do for Los Angeles and for the young people of our city, and to acknowledge the fact that they have now become not just Mount St. Mary's College, but Mount St. Mary's University. With me today are a number of officials and students from Mount St. Mary's. Introduce them. I would like to welcome University President Ann McElhaney Johnson. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Mr. Cedia was here with us. Would you like to say a few words?
Let me just tell you that I love Mount St. Mary's. It's an incredible jewel in our district, nestled right north of USC and right above where I used to work for SEIU. It was a location that we utilized on many occasions for conferences. Gubernatorial candidates would come and visit, political conferences. It was an asset to us then, but I had no greater appreciation for them than I did this past year, where we had a reception for the publishing of the book called Dreamers. And if you look on their campus, if you look at the statistics that Mike mentioned, it is a campus of dreamers, and it is amazing and a real asset to the city and to our community. And so I'm just very proud to be here with them. And I'm really excited about their new university status and all the new recognition that they are achieving. They've been a jewel hidden in that little part of our community, but now that jewel has been discovered. And so congratulations on your 90th.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's my honor, truly, to be here on behalf of Mount St. Mary's University to accept this recognition. And I want to thank our council members, Bonin and Council Member Cedillo, and also Council Member Price, who have been so supportive of our university during its history and so supportive in recent years as we continue to do the mission we have. I also want to say it is truly an even greater honor for us today to be recognized among the women who have been recognized before we came to the podium. And what an honor to be part of this city where women and all who support us are doing incredible work to improve the status of women and girls. Mount St. Mary's, as you heard, is celebrating its 90th anniversary as the only women's university in Los Angeles. We educate the daughters of Los Angeles. That has been our focus always, and we are considered an incredible privilege to educate these, many of whom are first-generation college students who come to us with enormous dreams, incredible potential, and leave prepared to be leaders in this community and in communities across the globe. So thank you so much. I'm here with 3 students. I'll mention their names as I finish. Blanca Duenas, Mitsuki Ariana, and Chloe Fries, who are 3 of our student leaders. And this is why we do the work we do. So thank you on behalf of our students, faculty, and staff.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, let's give them all another big round of applause. Thank you, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. President. Mitch.
So as the Mount St. Mary's folks are leaving, I just wanted to rise and thank Councilman Bonin for bringing them to us today. They've been a real boon in our community. I want to thank you personally because I once had the job of getting young people into college, and Mount St. Mary's was one of the places that we could call if young people did not have papers. And you all rolled out the red carpet, helped them find money and helped them find resources and work with young people. And there are folks now working in our community, building a better community because they were able to go to Mount St. Mary's. So thank you all.
Mr. Price.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to just thank President Ann and the university. Although technically located in District 1, you're close enough that we've adopted you also in District 9. And just appreciate the extraordinary role you've played in shaping the lives of men and women, but especially women. And so congratulations and keep up the good work.
Okay, again, members, we're fortunate to have with us today individuals from the nonprofit that are hopefully will be our partners where it relates to bringing the Olympic Games to Los Angeles in 24. Since we do have them here, I think that we should begin today's conversation. So with that said, and please, let's just bring them in. I think we have Bill Hanley and Casey Wasserman. And if there was a time to ask some questions, members, this is one of those opportunities for us. We did have an ad hoc committee meeting this morning as well, and I will be bringing up the CLA, CAO, and the city attorney's office that will go over some recommendations from the committee. But with that said, members, what I'm going to do is ask if Mr. Wasserman, if you'd kind of kick this off, and then we'll go to Bill, and with all of the experience in the world that you have, and we'll afford you the opportunity to make some opening remarks as well. So right now, Mr. Wasserman, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I'll make my opening remarks very brief. As you know, Mr. Hanway has to leave at 11:30, which we previously coordinated, and let the members ask questions. I want to thank you all for taking the time for this opportunity. I couldn't be more proud to be sitting here on behalf of our city discussing something so important and something that I think has such a great opportunity for our city. The USOC is deciding if Los Angeles should move forward as the United States candidate city. If selected, we'll have 2 years of conversation.
Could you hold your thoughts? Mr. Spindler, sit down, please. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Wasserman.
We'll have 2 years to develop the next draft of our plan before the IOC votes on its candidate city, its host city for 2024 Summer Games in September of 2017. Los Angeles is the most ready city to host the Olympics. You all have a draft of our earlier plan. That was done a year ago in coordination with the USOC, and we look forward to working with you going forward to refine and develop it and engage all of you and the communities around the city to make sure that what we put forward is the best foot. And in order to win this process, we all need to be united in our effort. This is going to be Los Angeles' bid and something we all need to be very proud of. I thank you for the opportunity.
Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, and it's an honor here to be speaking in front of the council members. My name is Bill Hanway. I run global sports for a company called AECOM. I have some significant experience in promoting and delivering Olympic Games. I spent 9 years from beginning to delivery all the way through the London Olympics for 9 years, the past 5 years in Rio for the Rio 2016 Games, and over the last 14 months working in Tokyo. With that experience, I can say unquestionably that Los Angeles is the most ready and capable city of hosting an Olympic Games I've ever had the privilege of working with, and certainly look forward to the opportunity of doing so. Casey and the mayor have been very clear that this is going to be a transparent process of working closely with everyone in this room to ensure that the games are great and can come back to Los Angeles.
Okay, and I'm going to ask the CLA, CAO, city attorney to come to the table as well. And while I'm doing that, Mr. Huizar, for a quick intro. We have some important people with us today.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. And if you guys could stand up, I wanted to acknowledge, real brief, something that has brought some positive attention to our LAPD across the country. As this young gentleman here was walking to school the other day, his mother flagged down, Susanna, his mother flagged down our LAPD officers because she didn't know how to put on a tie on for her son. And so it was the first day of school. Our officers who are here, Officers Alberto Ledesma and Jonathan Maldonado from the Hollenbeck Division, tied his tie. The mother took some pictures. Captain Baeza from the Hollenbeck Police Department put it on his social media, and it went viral. And LAPD was shown across the country about what the good works and what a little thing can do from our officers that continues to build that trust and positive vibes with our community. So I wanted to acknowledge here Officers Alberto Ledesma and Jonathan Maldonado, who is accompanied by their Captain Baeza and Captain Sandoval.
Let's give them a round of applause.
Big round of applause. Thank you so much. Okay. So, Mr. President, I want to thank you for allowing us to make this quick presentation. I know it wasn't scheduled as a regular presentation, but this was a great gesture that I wanted to make sure we do it quick so that we bring it 2-3 months later. You know how social media works. People will forget. But thank you so much, officers. Your work went a long way. We have some certificates for you, and thank you for being here. And last but not least, Mr. President, this young man is going to my alma mater at Salesian High School.
Wonderful.
We expect great things from him.
And
Congratulations.
we wish you well.
Thank you so much.
We wish you well, young man. All right.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Before the members start asking questions, maybe Ms. So or Jim, because I know you were here for the ad hoc meeting, could give a quick summary of what happened at this morning's meeting, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers.
Good morning. Sharon So, CLA's office. Yes, this morning the ad hoc committee took action to approve amended recommendations from a joint CAO-CLA report relating to signing an adjoinder agreement and also a revised resolution that was presented to the committee. That matter is before you. Essentially, what this will achieve is to allow the City Council to weigh in on future decisions as it relates to this Olympic bid. It'll also minimize the city's financial liability and give the council time to review and approve documents without making a financial commitment with the assistance of the city attorney. That joinder agreement language has been included in the revised joinder, and it is now before the council for approval.
Okay, so with that said, I'd like to recognize Mr. Bloomingfield.
I mean, we had a good opportunity to talk about this earlier in the ad hoc committee, and I really appreciate that because it's so critical that the city have the voice and that we're able to move forward on this truly visionary prospect. But since we're delving in a little deeper, Mr. Clark, I wanted to ask you a question on Section 2.02, the first sentence, trying to drill down on what does that actually obligate the city to do, if anything, and how do we, the theme of what we're going on in terms of how we make sure that the city has autonomy.
Well, I think, Mr. Blumenfeld, the agreement has to be read as a whole. The initial joinder agreement, in the view of the city attorney's office, essentially would have ended the council's role in consideration of the joinder agreement itself, even though the critical other agreements are not drafted yet. So we made some changes to the agreement with the great help of the bid committee's lawyer, who I worked with carefully on this, and the USOC, through the bid committee's lawyer, was going to amend this agreement in such a way that the council will have a chance to vote up or down on the key agreement, the host city agreement, and there's also a joint marketing program agreement as well. So it's hard to break down any, I don't know which part of 102 you're speaking about, but we have added clauses that make it clear that the other agreements will come back to this council.
It was the section I was looking at was the 202 that talks about what is the city obligated to do. And I guess, and what we talked about early in the ad hoc is that some of that's going to be developed by the bid committee, and we're going to work out the MOU on that. But the salient issue we've been talking about throughout the ad hoc is making sure that the city has the different bites at the apple.
Sure, I think that's part of what we talked about earlier this morning, and that is the city's role in negotiations going forward. 202 refers to the candidature documentation, which hasn't been prepared yet. Again, I'm new to the Olympics, but as I understand it from the experts, that's a complicated series of documents which will include the host city agreement, and at this stage that hasn't been done yet. So there'll be a chance for the city to take part in that, and clearly the city will be able to weigh in, this council will be able to weigh in before that goes forward.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Again, members, we've got Bill with us for about 28 minutes. Let's take advantage. So if there are any questions that you want to direct to him, let's please do that. I'm going to recognize Mr. Bonin right now.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all for the presentation. I've tried to read as much of this as I can. I listened to every word of this morning's hearing. I want to thank both of you in particular for the work that you have done on this, the analysis you've provided. Like most Angelenos, I'm very excited about the prospect of having the Olympics here and trust that we will manage to do that, and it'll be a successful event that will give some glory to LA around the world. At the same time, I had a lot of questions, appropriately so, I think, and I want to thank the city attorney and the CLA and the CAO for the work you did over the past couple days, because I'm much more comfortable with the joinder agreement through the work that you've done and the amendments you've done. I think. I just want to ask a couple clarifying questions. In sort of the range of degree of intensity of what the joinder agreement could mean, with it being on one end basically a commitment to negotiate in good faith, and on the other end being a we're locked into this, where is the joinder agreement?
Primarily the former, not the latter.
So it's pretty close to being just an agreement to negotiate in good faith.
Well, it's a little bit more than that. I mean, we are committing to go forward, I think, in good faith to try to develop a bid.
Right.
But there's, I mentioned to Mr. Blumenfeld, the agreement as amended gives the council a right to play a role in adopting or not adopting later. The recommendation this morning is for an agreement between the bid committee on the one hand and the city on the other, so the city has a place at the table when the tripartite agreement, with the host city agreement is the USOC, the bid committee, and the city, when that is developed.
So very clearly and succinctly, today we are not making any commitment on behalf of the taxpayers of Los Angeles for expenditures, potential or otherwise, other than to research this opportunity.
Well, I answered, I think, the council president's question about that before. There will be undoubtedly city expenditures. I mean, one could argue that all the work the CLA, CAO's office, our office has done, but as I said to Mr. Wesson, we're kind of sunk costs for you all anyway.
We're spending money to try to get the games, but we're not committing to any money for the games.
That's a good way of putting it, Mr. Bonham.
So as we go through this process, and I'm glad we'll have that voice, I have a lot of concerns. I discussed with Mr. Wasserman last night, particularly about security, about who will pay for that, how expensive it will be, and about whether or not we'll be responsible for cost overruns for stuff in Santa Monica or other jurisdictions. And I'm very glad to hear that you're going to be putting together this MOU with the bid committee. I think that is extremely important. A question I have on that: if we go forward and are saying that we will cover cost overruns, the budget for the games is being set by the committee and not by the City of Los Angeles. So I'm wondering what ability we as an entity, the city, whether it's the council, the mayor, or someone else, have to veto budget expenditures or be able to say enough is enough. I think we've entered a risk zone that we're not comfortable with.
So, Mr. Bonin, I would think that as part of the MOU that would be brought back to you, that would be one of the protocols that we would need to lay out in the MOU, that to the extent that there are financial commitments, that they be brought back to the City Council for approval. You may want to establish thresholds. We haven't even gotten that far yet.
But we can negotiate that in the MOU?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay.
Councilman, for clarity, we've always contemplated there would be an MOU. We've just not been in a position to be the chosen city by the USOC, so there's been no reason to have an MOU until this point.
Great. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Mr. Krikorian?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just further on the issue of the MOU, Mr. Wasserman and Mr. Hanley, are there precedents in other cities that you've seen recently where you have a division of risk and responsibility between the city and the operating committee? And are those, what would be some examples of that? And could we have some examples of that we could see? Or maybe if Ms. So or Mr. Santana have received them yet, I don't know. But I'd be interested in seeing what sort of templates other cities have had for that kind of relationship.
Well, I think you have to bifurcate that answer into American cities and non-American cities. So the last American city to bid was Chicago. There was an MOU between the city and its organizing committee, which I imagine will use as some sort of guidepost as a starting point. But we need to do what's appropriate for this council and our city. Most other cities, the bid process that we're about to undertake and the ultimate bid are all funded by the municipality, whether it's the city or the government. And so there's usually not a true division of that. They appoint a committee, but everything is funded. So London, their bid process of 3 years, funded by Parliament. The other countries bidding against us are being funded by their government. Our bid will be privately funded with the money raised to date.
So on that point, that's one extreme that some of these other cities have been entirely or nearly entirely government funded. The other extreme is what this city did in 1984, in which there was no government guarantee and no government funding, and entirely supported by the committee, and, by the way, one of the most successful Olympic Games in modern times. And we still benefit today. There's kids in neighborhoods throughout our city today that are benefiting from the money that came off the surplus of the 1984 Olympics. So can you speak a little bit to, given that that was one extreme then, and now it seems to be the norm to go in the other direction, can you talk a little bit about how the Olympics, Games are different now, how the structure of host cities and their relationship with the Games are different now than 1984?
Yeah, and just to be clear, what I said previously relates to the bid process, not the hosting. So there's the phase between hopefully September of this year and September of 2017 where we compete against other cities in the world in the IOC's process. And then if we're fortunate enough to win, there's a period from September of 2017 till July of 2024 to get ready and host the Games. The first part is obviously the private part and the part we need to pay for. The part where people start talking about a guarantee is the second part. 1984 was a different time and place. LA should be proud of its history and its role in that, in many ways changing the landscape of what it meant to host the Games. But hosting the Games, we believe in LA today, with the economic success of the IOC and their contribution to the budget and the viability of our existing infrastructure, combined with what I think is maybe unprecedented revenue opportunities in Los Angeles to host the Games, it's a different time and place, and the IOC has a process, and if we're not comfortable with that process, then we shouldn't go forward. Part of that is the host city contract, which we haven't seen yet because they haven't delivered it to the cities. And when we get that host city contract, that's part of the process that we'll engage with you to get everybody either comfortable or not, but hopefully comfortable with both our assumptions, our plan, our budget, that contract that allows us to commit to the IOC that were we selected, we'd be prepared to host the Games.
Thank you, Mr. Krikorian. And before I call on the next speaker, earlier when we were in committee, I asked about the cost for security. If you could share with the members of this council, again, the differences between 84 and today, and how much that would cost, how it's funded, and what have you. I think because that cost is billion plus or what have you, I think it would be good data for the council to have.
Let me back up a step and say the first thing is when the USOC began their process over a year ago, they were very clear with the cities that if the federal government wasn't prepared to take care of the security and the funding of the security, there would never be an American city to host Olympic Games, ever. That's the standard they set and the standard we have been following. In 84, obviously, that is pre-9/11. Things have changed dramatically in terms of security protocols. But they did pick up a fair amount of the security budget, if not, I think it was roughly $80 million in 1984. And for our bid, it is contemplated and assumed that they will be picking up and paying for the budget of the security of the Games.
I think just to reflect on the size and scale, in 1984 there were 6,800 athletes who came. Now that number is 16,000. The number of visitors and spectators has increased hugely, so that the complexity of security is completely different now, not just the context but also in the scale. And without the direction and coordination with the federal government security agencies, the Games couldn't be delivered safely and secure.
Thank you. Mr. Rue?
I'd like to thank Mayor Garcetti and to Casey Wasserman for all your efforts. And your grandfather is a legend. And to Universal, to Council District 4, the history and the lore for not just Council District 4, but for the city of Los Angeles. And I'd like to thank the Council President, Wesson, for amending this agreement to ensure that full public engagement throughout the neighborhoods of Los Angeles. And I'd really like to thank the city attorney, the CAO, and the chief legislative analyst for taking the time to meet with me numerous times in the last couple of days to review my concerns. But let me first start off by saying, let me be very clear. I strongly support bringing the Olympics back to Los Angeles. But we have to get it right. Having hosted the Games twice before, as many have mentioned, we have the resources and the experience to make this world event possible and successful. But it's our responsibility as a council to protect taxpayer dollars and to make sure that the public has a voice in this important international event. This agreement was delivered to our offices like everybody else just 3 days ago, and as more information comes available, more questions emerge. It would be irresponsible to approve any agreement without the careful vetting and meaningful public discussion. So I'm really thankful for this opportunity today. No doubt, this has tremendous opportunity. But it's our job to evaluate the risks of financial responsibility and to ensure we have meaningful public involvement in the decision-making process. And I followed diligently and heard the committee meeting earlier today. And I don't want to repeat the questions, but just to clarify for the non-lawyers, just like myself, you know, I want to ask again the city attorney, and I know Councilman Blumenfield just asked these questions, but what fiscal protections does the city have in this agreement?
The fiscal protections the city has is that this agreement now provides that the subsequent agreements that will make financial commitments will come back to the council.
Okay. Anything to add, CAO or CLA?
We would concur with the city attorney. They have assured us that the language provided has been agreed to by the USOC as well as the city attorney's office. In addition to that, you'll note that the resolution that is before you has been revised to make it even crystal clear that that is the case, that all of these agreements will come back to the city council for approval.
And my office also concurs with the city attorney and the CLA in terms of the protections it provides the council. In our report, we do lay out a set of principles that we're recommending that your council adopt, and one of them is to reassure the public that public expenditures would ultimately have to be approved by the mayor and the council.
Great. And again, for the non-lawyers, and again, Councilman Blumenfeld asked this question about Section 2.01. We had a debate in our office what the definition or the meaning of the word "shall" was, and because we interpret it as this section still legally requires that approval of the host committee contract, that it's automatically required. But if you could explain that in the context of Section 1.04, which you added in.
Yes, the 1.04 was in fact added through negotiations with the council for the bid committee, who was in turn working with the USOC on this. What it essentially says is, notwithstanding anything else, Mr. Rue, that the agreements will come back to the council. The host city agreement and joint marketing program agreement, which are referred to in Section 104. Legally, when something says notwithstanding anything else, the notwithstanding clause governs.
Okay. So what? Learning a lot about documents.
I'm sorry about that, Mr. Rue.
You know, I was following the earlier committee meeting earlier, and we talked about how much this bid's going to cost. Earlier, I thought it was 20 to 35 million, but I thought I heard 65.
So our bid budget today is $35 million, of which I've raised that money privately already.
Great. And if for some reason this bid is rejected, does the city have any responsibility or?
No.
Great. And I know the issue of the MOU has come up, and I think it's a great idea of that idea. But to ensure that we are not obligating the city to any liability, is it possible, can we have an outline of the terms of the MOU before the joinder vote this Tuesday?
Since we haven't had any discussions about that, even with the lawyer for the bid committee, I'm not. I mean, we have to have some discussions. And Mr. Wasserman just spoke briefly a minute ago. This is the beginning of that process. I honestly think it's going to be very difficult to do that before Tuesday, Mr. Rue.
Okay, check your time, David. You may want to push your button again.
It doesn't work.
Oh, no, what I'm saying is, well, go, continue. and then I'm going to go to somebody else, and if you want to speak, you push it again.
I'll just do two quick questions.
Again, that agreement does come back to this council.
Okay. In the final bid document, is the document that we have before us and online, that's the final bid document?
Not even close. It is the preliminary document that we generated a year ago for the USOC and them to make their decision.
No, I mean the final bid document for September 15th.
There is nothing due September 15th. It's merely an indication from the USOC. It's a letter to the IOC on behalf of the USOC, would be declaring Los Angeles as their bid candidate.
And lastly, how will the city and LA24 ensure that the various governing bodies relating to the games be gender balanced and reflect the diversity of our city?
Well, it's a priority for us, and we look forward to ensuring that that's the case. In my company, I think we have a pretty good track record of that and have actually been recognized nationally as such. So we look forward to continuing that.
That's all for now.
Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm on the committee. We had a great conversation this morning, discussion, and I feel very good that we are going to now engage in a process that will allow us as a body to land on the level of risk that we think makes sense, because it will involve a level of risk. There's no question about it. I think we're in a much better place should we approve the revisions to the joinder agreement that have been suggested by City Attorney, CAO, CLA. Thank you for all your work on that. I was going to ask you to walk us through what the exact revisions are. I won't do that now because of time, but if you could just...
No, go right ahead.
Okay, maybe if you could walk us through the major points that have given us a level of satisfaction to move forward. I think that might be helpful to the body, because the revisions you made are considerable. They were done, as you mentioned, Mr. City Attorney, with legal consultation with the USOC, legal counsel in New York. And so I think that that is the immediate sort of next step. And then for the next several months, better part of 2 years, we'll have a great chance at crafting an agreement that we can all feel good about moving forward. So I think that will be helpful at this juncture to just walk through those steps to give this body the sense of security to move forward. Thank you.
That would be fine. Let me just do this in order in which they appear in the joinder agreement as opposed to orders of importance. The first appearance is the whereas clause, which was added. It's the sixth whereas clause, which reads, whereas following the bid preparation phase, the host city contract and joint marketing program agreement, as such terms are defined below, will be subject to approval by the City Council prior to the city's submission of its candidature file to the IOC. That's the first thing, although whereas clauses are the way you interpret an agreement, they're not binding in and of themselves. The second change is a modest one, but it's important, and that is in the heading of Article 1, the draft read representations and warranties of the city. The of the city portion was stricken for reasons I'll explain in a minute. In Section 102, the phrase at the end of the first line, except as set forth in Section 1.03 of this agreement, was added. The change to Section 1.03 is the first sentence. The host city contract and joint marketing program agreement will be subject to approval by the City Council prior to the city's submission of its candidature file to the IOC. The final change is in Section 1.04, which did not exist in the prior draft. This is a new section, and the reason the title of this article was changed is because this is not a representation of the city. It's an acknowledgement by the U.S. Olympic Committee. It reads as follows. The USOC acknowledges that notwithstanding anything to the contrary in this agreement, the host city contract and joint marketing program agreement will be subject to approval by the City Council prior to the city's submission of its candidature file to the IOC. Those are the changes that we were able to agree on, and I think they're critical to letting this council continue to be involved and to approve or disapprove the subsequent agreements.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. As I said this morning in committee, I think we are all looking toward LA 2024 with great enthusiasm, hope, promise, with all the concerns that we have expressed will be addressed, and I feel very good about that, so that we can then look to LA 2025, the post-Olympic Los Angeles, which we all want to make sure is a better Los Angeles than we have now, and we want to maximize the opportunity for everyone who participates in these potential Los Angeles Olympic Games. So again, thank you for your work, and I look forward to the considerable dialogue, the tough questions, the back and forth, so we can hammer out an agreement that works for the city of Los Angeles and works for the constituents that we represent, and keeps us responsible to our fiduciary requirements for the city. So thanks again, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell. And before I recognize Mr. Koretz, I just want to go through a few quick things, if I may. Members, where it relates to the timeline, this is a very good conversation. We will not be requesting a vote. The committee discussed that today. We thought that we would try to give this body more time to adequately go through the revisions that were made today. And if our comfort level is such, Tuesday would be the date that we would try to come to some conclusion on this. The other thing that I want to ask of the folk that are before us today, one of the questions that I'm sure most of us have been asked is, why the rush? Why the rush? Why the rush? Okay, given what we've done today, I think that has all but eliminated the rush. And I would maybe try to get some of you to explain that. So I would defer to you. And the last thing is, Miguel, you mentioned one of the principles today. You may want to go over the 4 principles. So with that said, I don't know, Casey, you want to jump in first?
Sure. Thank you, sir. The rush is not by our own doing. It's by the nature of the process. In January, the USOC selected Boston. That was a preliminary decision, which in Boston's case gave them, in theory, until September 15th to do all of the work. And when Boston decided to withdraw from the opportunity, the USOC came back to us. That has been a process over the last few weeks. So we are being asked, both you, the council, and us, the committee, to do the work that Boston had, in theory, 9 months to do in this short period of time. And so we appreciate the efforts. We are all under the same environment here in terms of timing. Believe me, it's not that we much would have preferred to win in January and been doing this over the last 9 months, but it is what it is, and our job is to put our best foot forward and see if we can't get to a place of agreement so that we can go forward on September 15th.
Okay, thank you. But when we submit this letter, the letter doesn't, this joinder agreement or whatever it is we have to submit to the committee, does not have all of the particulars. Basically, it's a document that indicates that we are going to engage. And so in the event that we do that, if we support it, where it relates to the time, I mean, Mr. Wasserman is right as to the occurrence of events, but where it relates for the time, I would think that the rush, we now have given ourselves over a year to engage in the do's, the don'ts, and the cost. And so that's part of what I'm referring to where it relates to the rush. So,
yeah, but look, the IOC process that starts September 15th of 2015 and concludes in September of 2017, there are submissions we need to make. The final dates aren't set. Those are selected by the IOC, but as was stated earlier this morning, it's likely that we have to submit our final bid documents with all of the details fleshed out late 2016, and then prior to that, this council would have to approve that plan and the host city agreement such that we were selected by the IOC, we'd be prepared to go forward.
And
so you'd have well over a year.
So members, that I think really helps us. It gives us more time, deals with the question of rush. And now Mr. Santana.
Certainly, and as you indicated, this is the beginning of a long process, and so we recommended a series of principles to help guide the discussion, the analysis, and ultimately the information that's provided to all of you as you make your final decision. So I'll walk through what those principles are. The first one is that all agreements entered into and obligations made should fully protect the city's existing and future general fund base. The second, the city must maintain control over the decision-making processes on all issues that impact the operation of the city, its facilities, and the quality of life for its residents. The third is that at no time will public funds be committed without the express authorization of the City Council and the Mayor. And finally, the fourth, the city will make every effort to make the process and all related actions as transparent as possible. And we're recommending these as initial. Certainly, as the committee continues to deliberate, additional principles may be added.
And again, just so I don't forget, Mr. Wasserman, I want to give you a big thank you. I want to definitely mention the mayor for the courage that he's shown in trying to help lead this city, put us in a position where we, the council, partner with him, you, Mr. Wasserman, to try to bring this to Los Angeles. So I appreciate all the work that you've done. I appreciate what the mayor's staff has done, and of course our own city attorney, CAO, CLA. Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I would echo what you just said and thank everybody who's done all the great work to get us to this point. I'm very excited about the prospect of us winning this bid and hosting the Olympic Games in 2024. It was a huge positive for the city twice before, and I expect it to be so again. I would ask one thing on an equally positive note. Have we done much analysis yet about the ancillary potential advantages of having taken on the games? For instance, the possibility of the feds advancing us more money and getting our transit infrastructure in place to the point where it's easy to get to UCLA and other key locations for the games. Have we looked at what housing needs to be built relating to the Olympic Village and how much that leaves us and benefits us, and potential tourism advantages and marketing as well? Have we looked at all that stuff yet, and what have we found, if so?
So on the transportation issue, I think that the mayor has said publicly that no transportation infrastructure will be built solely because of the games, but the infrastructure that's being built regardless of the games, the opportunity to have that conversation with the government, I think, is a high priority and something we would look forward to. We believe that the housing opportunity to build 5,000 units and 17,500 beds for the games, which post-games can be used for low and middle income housing deployment, is a huge benefit to the city. And clearly, already as a tourism leader, this only enhances our global standing in that nature and exposes our city in ways that, frankly, very few other events on the world stage could. And we haven't quantified those in dollars, but we look forward to that process because we think they all create significant opportunities.
May I add, Mr. Koretz, as part of the committee's action, they're directing that our two offices bring about experts to help, particularly in exploring many of the issues that you raised, as well as to better understanding the financial benefit that the city would gain from having the Olympics here.
And not that this is without risk, although I think at the end of the day the city will do just fine. There are other cities that will also benefit, like Beverly Hills and West Hollywood, et cetera. Any chance that in any way they can share any of the risk, or do they just get the benefit without the risk?
We obviously haven't had that conversation. There's some events may go through those cities, but certainly we're happy to explore that. But I think it's probably a little premature before we develop a finalized plan.
But I think that is something we should have as a conversation with some of the surrounding cities that certainly will benefit from full hotels and lots of tourists and lots of retail sales. So hopefully we can try to bring them in as somewhat as partners if possible.
Happy to have that dialogue.
Very good.
Thank you. Okay, I think at this point we need to try to hear from the public. So with that said, the first speaker that we have is Mr. Eric Previn, followed by, Mr. City Attorney? Yeah, 1 minute. Mr. Eric Previn, followed by Shamari Davis, followed by Aaron Foreman, if you're still here. Please come forward so we can get as many people in as possible. So, Mr. Previn, you're on the clock.
Good morning, Council President Wesson and esteemed City Council. It's Eric Previn from CD2, also a big fan of the Olympics. And a lot of good questions have been raised, and it appears that there's a feeling that there's not a lot of risk going forward. I'm not 100% convinced of that. I'd like to thank Mr. Wasserman, who is, for those who don't know who he is a big sports guy. I believe his company represents sort of 20% of the NBA. So these guys know what they're doing, and they have a lot of experience. One concern, one of the benefits of this particular proposal is that the LA is so well equipped with various stadiums and other things like, the ones that we're talking about downtown, the Coliseum, obviously. I'm just anxious that that $500 million that's apparently going to be needed to go into the Coliseum. There was a little hedging about that. There seems to be a lot of enthusiasm when people are opting in, but then once we all commit, I'm just wondering whether or not we're going to be able to hold, for example, USC to their investment. Sir, is it not a 2 minute?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Previn. And so if I could get Mr. Davis, followed by Mr. Foreman, followed by Mr. Miller, Ron Miller. Please come forward, sir, and just identify yourself.
Good morning. My name is Aaron Foreman, and I live in Councilmember Mike Bonin's district. I spoke earlier at the ad hoc committee, but I'd like to address a different benefit of the Olympics. So I think that the Olympics in Los Angeles could create more opportunities for America to host even more major sports events. So after the successful 1984 Olympics, the United States hosted the 1994 FIFA World Cup, and it was the most successful one in history that boosted soccer's popularity in this country as a sport and an industry, as well as the 1999 Women's World Cup, in which the United States team achieved glory at the Rose Bowl, not too far from here. So with other sports such as rugby and cricket gaining popularity in America, hosting a World Cup for one of these sports could dramatically boost the nation's interest and open up economic opportunities. So Olympics, they lead to other great events. Brazil recently hosted the World Cup, and Rio de Janeiro will host the Olympics. And I believe that after hosting a successful Olympics, FIFA will have no choice but to consider allowing America to host a World Cup.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
Good morning, Mr. President and council members. I spoke earlier this morning also. I'd just like to reiterate that the building trades has had a hand in every Olympic venue in Los Angeles since there was Olympics in Los Angeles. And we plan on being here for this one also. Mr. O'Farrell, you brought up a good question during the ad hoc committee about what happens in 2025. We'll be left with some pretty iconic venues, just like the Coliseum was left in the 30s, right? It's an iconic venue. It probably needs a little updating, some lipstick, but we're good to go, and that's why we're so attractive to the Olympic Committee. So let's move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I don't see Samari Davis. So if we can get Allison Blythe, Ruben Gonzalez, Ernesto J. with Laborers 300. Please come forward, please.
Hi, my name is Allison Blythe, and I go to Windward School and participate in the Mayor's Youth Council. I also live in Councilman Bonin's district. I've been ice skating for 7 years, and I can say that for people dedicated to a sport, even a winter sport, having the 2024 Olympics here would be a really positive experience. Being in the atmosphere with all of those dedicated and hardworking athletes achieving their goal would be very inspiring and rewarding. And I think looking back at the 1984 Olympics held here, the Olympics in Los Angeles is a legacy worth continuing. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Ruben Gonzalez. I'm here on behalf of the LA Area Chamber of Commerce. The Los Angeles business community enthusiastically supports this Olympic bid. We believe that at this point in time, the key is to come from a place of yes. We have the leadership and the management in this council and in the mayor's office and in the good city staff and in the business community as a partner to handle all of the potential risks involved in this process. We can more than mitigate them through accountability, transparency, good planning, and teamwork. And the upsides are monumental that we cannot walk away from this opportunity. Not only the tangible improvements in infrastructure in Los Angeles, but the intangible, which is how much the Olympics, time and again, unify Los Angeles across all boundaries, real and imagined. So we firmly support this bid, and we are excited in being partners with the City of LA and stakeholders across the region to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Ernesto, and then if there's a Herb Mendelson and John Holland. Yes, sir.
Good morning, council members, President Wesson. My name is Ernesto. I'm here on behalf of Sergio Rascon, Business Manager of Labor's Local 300. We're here to ask for your support on this agreement. Not only will it create thousands of jobs for much-needed Angelinos, even some of the local hire people that are in dire needs of careers, but it'll be an investment into our aging infrastructure, which is much needed, a lot of sidewalk, street repairs, and an investment into our aging sports facilities like the Coliseum. We see this as a benefit with the NFL making a return back to Los Angeles. Now's the time to act and kind of make everything come together in full circle so that we all benefit from this type of an event. So we ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Mr. Mendelson, followed by John.
Good
Yes,
morning, members of the Los Angeles City Council. My name is Herb Mendelson. I've been selling solar to Angelinos for the last 13 years, and I want to speak in behalf of the solar jobs that could be created if we host the 2024 solar games. I like to call them the Solar Olympics. I quickly looked at the LA Coliseum, LA Zoo, LA Convention Center, Dodger Stadium, and Galen Center and the Poly Pavilion. We could erect about 100 megawatts of solar covering the parking lots and some of the roofs of these buildings. That would provide, according to the LA Business Council and UCLA Luskin Center's job study, about 36,000 full-time job hours, or as many as 5,000 jobs. So LA's 2024 socially responsible Summer Olympics could also be known, as I said, the Solar Olympics, and we could leave this great legacy because these panels would also be guaranteed halfway to the 22nd century. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. John, Mr. Holland.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. John Howland, Central City Association. CCA strongly supports this bid. 1984 was a phenomenal time. The Olympics were an amazing event that brought the city together, and as Ruben said, this is another chance to bring the city together. More so, since 1984, the city has evolved into an incredible, even more incredible place, one with a dynamic downtown that's a 24/7 downtown that didn't exist at the time, and it's a remarkable chance to showcase that event, both if the event happens, even if it doesn't, the advertising, the marketing of a bid is a great way to draw people into this city, to promote the tourism that helps this city thrive. We support this bid. Many of CCA's members, especially our foreign investors in downtown, are strongly supportive of this. Support the bid. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I can now have Mr. Herman, Mr. Spindler, and Mr. Walsh. Please come forward. Mr. Walsh, if you get there first, it's okay.
John Walsh, this is a rush to judgment. Tuesday, you got the deal, and you're already rewriting it 72 hours later. 2025, we get stuck with hundreds of millions of dollars in cost overruns, and none of you will be here because of term limitations. And that's what we're saying right now is only, and he is right, Mr. Koretz, only the city of Los Angeles is exposed. What about the other 87 cities? Are they going to pay? for the cost overruns? Even the Times today has a story about a new cost overrun. Zev Yaroslavsky's all over the media about cost overruns. And you're going to have Casey Wasserman, who gave us arena football, one of the biggest disasters in the history of sports. He's going to run all this damn crap. I'm telling you right now, I will be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If I could now get Mr. Herman, followed by Mr. Spindler.
Well, we all know we have to vote no on this because it's going to cost us billions of dollars in errors that you've created, leaving out the county supervisor and many other individuals should be involved in this. And you're using the term homelessness in this situation. You're so fucking pathetic. Stop putting the homeless situation in the Olympics, that you're going to build such a huge structure and leave it for the homeless people later on. That is real methodically hilarious. Vote no for Englander and
Stay on the subject. Stay on the subject, Mr. Herman.
Olympics. This is quoted on video item 41, 3640 is the time. Like you all, Mr. Wesson, you said, you can now go to France, Mr. Spindler. We would help you, and we will help you. Let us know. What does that mean? You're going to send them to France for the Olympics? That's fucked up. Don't be making threats.
Thank you. Mr. Spindler.
Yes, the Olympics. Also in your motion, you offered to do anything to help me to move to France. I'll be submitting my bid included in that cost. I accept your offer. $950,000 will cover this and the settlement for the burning of my ranch. So you're here. You're wondering why you're here. 8:30 in the morning on a Friday. Nobody could make that meeting. You rammed it through. The reason you rammed it through, the International Olympic Committee would have given us the games had Herb Wesson's motion passed on Wednesday, because it's open-ended. That's the only way you can get the games in this broken down, disgusting city of corruption. The only way you can get the games here is to give the IOC all the money in the city's treasury. But David stopped you, Wesson, and now we're going to be accountable to the taxpayers.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Again, members, the plan would, and that, let's close general public comment on that, Mr. Clerk, on this item. Anyway, again, members, this will come before us on Tuesday. Please take the next several days to read the documents. Any questions that you have, don't hesitate to call our city attorney's office, CLA, or CAO. Okay, that brings us now.
And Mr. President, for
yes.
clarification, Tuesday is September 1st.
Okay, all righty. Item 12, Mr. Walsh and Mr. Spindler. Item 12. Again, thank everyone for all of their hard work.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, J. Walsh Confidential. This concerns rent escrow account program, and you seem to be doing a fairly good job on that, and I think you should be, this is the nitty-gritty. This is what you should be spending your time on, not the year 2025, on rent escrow account program, so those people who whose apartments are have code violations no longer have to pay the landlord directly. They pay the city until the code violations have been fixed. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, next.
All right. Continuing with the puppet meeting for Friday. Let's see here. Amnesty. Yes. Finally, in the ghetto of CD8, people are free now. Landlords are free. Yes, amen. 4720 South 4th Avenue. You are emancipated.
Twice you are emancipated because of Marquise Harris Dawson, yo. 210 West 54th Street, you're free. Free from the slavery, thank God. Marquise Harris Dawson is the next coming of Lincoln.
Stay on the subject.
I know, but I'm so excited about CD8 and the freedom
No,
of
you're
people.
just going to stay on the subject.
I'm
Has
sorry.
nothing. Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Spindler.
I'm
Stay on
sorry.
the subject.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know you're a slave owner.
Okay,
Now,
you're done.
get to see-
You're
but-
done. That has nothing to do with the. Has cut his time. That has nothing to do with the item. Okay, let's prepare to vote on the item. He's continuing to disrupt this meeting, Mr. City Attorney. So on this item, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay.
Mr. President, there's been a request to continue item 1J to October 6th.
So without objection, that'll be the order. I'll get to you, but I want to go to Mr. Price.
Reconsider item 1D from August the 26th, Council File 15-0160-S211, and like to continue that item for 2 weeks.
Okay, so let's vote on it, but that would put us September 11th, Mr. Clerk?
That is correct,
Okay,
sir.
so let's vote on reconsideration. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
And that item has been continued to September 11th. Mr. Koretz.
Thank you.
I'd just like to ask that item 9 go urgent forthwith.
So, item 9? Okay, we'll do that, but we need to vote on that, Mr. Koretz. So now we're voting on urgent forthwith. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, that now brings us to item 8. Mr. Koretz, I think that's you.
I don't think so.
Okay, so on this item, there are no speakers in the queue and public comment has been satisfied. So let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Okay, now let's move on to item 14. Item 14 is held by cards. Mr. Herman and Mr. Walsh, please come forward, followed by Mr. Spindler. Please come forward.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. This is a $50,000 reward for information leading to the apprehension and conviction for the shooting of Brandon Fields on December 8th, way back in 2014. Now, your chances of catching anybody giving you any kind of information leading to a reward is 0. You've seen the shirt. It's on my website. Snitches get stitches. This is a gang killing. You know as well as I do, if anybody gives you any information on a gang killing, that person will have his throat slit. But you have, I believe, over 400 in the last 20 years of outstanding rewards. And I don't know, does it make you feel macho putting up these rewards? Because if anybody tries to get the money, you're not going to put 30 cops on them 24 hours a day as bodyguards. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Okay, Mr. Herman?
We're really not safe in Los Angeles, as you heard regarding the shooting on December 8th of Mr. Fields Brandon, 26-year-old man. Simply happened off of 118th Street, walking himself home. I'm walking on fire. But that's not the subject. It happened around 3:30 p.m. And this is a sad situation regarding this. A friend, as he is, he gave and offered a place for a friend, a homeless individual friend, to stay and to live at his home. What a heart the gentleman had, and what bunch of crooked, malicious assholes took his life. Horrible, isn't it? Horrible. But yet we can only offer $50,000 reward as opposed to maybe a $100,000 reward for a real man who offers his home to homeless individuals. That is Brandon Fields. Thank you, sir, and may God be with your family and your soul.
Okay, Mr. Spindler.
Yes, yes, yes. Another death in the streets of Los Angeles. Brandon Field get killed. Everybody get killed. And there's a reward for $50,000. How about a reward for the people killed by the LAPD?
Why don't you stay on this subject?
And now the slave owner, he's trying to restrict me
You're
talking
not on
about
the
it.
subject. You say it again, you forfeit your time. Stay on the subject.
I'm starting that, man. $50,000. Ain't no snitches gonna be bitches for that $50,000. You gotta have relocation money, man. So you gotta wear a hood the rest of your life for $50,000 and go into hiding? I mean, would you want to wear this hood all your life for only $50,000 fucking dollars? No, man. You gotta order a lot more money. You got to do this by 10 times. The world's got to be $500,000 to risk the death of snitching on the killers of this fool killer who killed this nice gentleman, Brandon Field. But nobody can come forward. And the reason is because once the snitch comes forward, he going to be done in after he get the money from you, the pimp fool up there. So this award ain't going to be claimed. There ain't nobody going to be there because for $50,000, you got to wear a goddamn hood like this? I ain't going to do it like that. And I mean, this is a custom-made hood. $50,000 buy you a nice hood, but it ain't going to buy you a nice grave spot over there in Forest Lawn. So, please, I'm just saying, you got to let this go, man. Don't be coming forward, especially don't be coming forward to the LAPD.
You're off the subject again. You're off the subject. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney? Mr. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Sergeants, he's disrupting the meeting for, I think, the third or fourth time. I think we should, and now Mr. Herman is, where it relates to Mr. Spindler, I think we should show him a seat. And because he's continuing to disrupt the meeting, so why don't we help him find a seat in our outer office, Mr. City Attorney.
So, thank you, Mr. President. And this is just to advise folks that the address of members of the public and the language in public comment periods cannot be constitutionally restricted unless the address or comments actually disrupt the meeting. Any city staff members or visitors who may be offended by any language that may be used by any speaker should feel free to leave the council chamber until public comment has ended.
And they should also feel free to let us know if they're offended by this. Mr. Koretz, would you want to add on to that, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we've been contacted by the Museum of Tolerance, which is highly offended by what has been going on here recently with hoods and swastikas and such. And Rabbi Heyer and others at the museum. And so I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but it is certainly distressing to members of the Jewish community and many others as well.
Thank you for that. That brings us to... Oh, Sergeants, I asked you to take that Mr. Spindler's done. So I asked you to remove him. Mr. Harris Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask for reconsideration of item 4.
Okay, let's vote on. Okay, let's vote on 14. It's my understanding we didn't. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Mr. Harris Dawson wants reconsideration on, again, what item?
On item 4,
And did
we want to
you then want to
receive and file it.
Okay, let's. Okay, so let's vote on reconsideration. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, and now we'll receive and file that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyway, Mr. Spindler, you've been asked to leave. And you're disrupting the meeting by not following the instructions of the sergeants. So again, Mr. Spindler, you have been asked to leave the chambers. You were warned on several occasions to not disrupt this meeting, but you failed to heed those warnings. So please exit. Sergeants, show him where the door is. Exit. He's still, Mr. City Attorney and members, disrupting this meeting by speaking on his way out of the chambers. Let's now go to item 16. On item 16, I have Mr. Herman and Mr. Walsh on item 16. Item 16.
John Walsh at HollywoodHighlands.org. Here we had a great motion. Raise the purchase tobacco cigarettes limit from 18 to 21. The council let it expire before they could vote on it. It was a very, very low issue here. You really don't care about minority children here. You care about...
Mr. City Attorney, hold on.
One can purchase tobacco. Change from
He's on the wrong item, Mr. City Attorney. Well, you're on item 16, Mr. Walsh.
Item 15.
Item 16. I'm sorry. 1-6.
Okay, this is the rape of a female university student on Saturday, November 1st, 2014. $50,000. How come she gets $50,000? I can tell you yesterday on Hollywood Boulevard, a black woman was raped. There's no reward for her. In fact, if you check on these rape rewards, you'll find that a reward is almost automatic if the woman is white. If the woman is brown, maybe 50-50. If the woman is black, hardly ever. This is a female university student. What university? I think all of us would like to know where this happened. So maybe somebody out there was watching. But you're covering for the university by not mentioning it. Nobody's going to get the $50,000. She was raped almost a year ago. But it makes you feel macho to put up these rewards. In fact, there's about 2 or 3 to 5 rapes a day in this city, and increasing. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Herman.
Oh, I recall a time when there was a person raped by a public official, Andrew Adelman, drug rape. And this goes into tell you and show you exactly the situation we're living in the city of Los Angeles. It's a good thing Mr. Weezer went off because
Let's stay on
Francine
this subject.
Godoy
Stay
could
on
have
this
been raped.
subject.
I am. I'm talking about rape victims at the university, but it doesn't tell you what university. So I can be talking about anyone who went to a university. I went to Cal State LA, but I wasn't raped.
Stay on the subject.
So Herman, giving a $50,000 information for snitches who get stitches is not going to help. I know that for a fact. And because my time is running down to my last 1 frickin' minute, I'm going to keep it PG-13 and leave you with the count out. 10, 9, 8,
You're not on
7.
subject. Thank you so much. Okay, members, let us vote. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Now we'll go to item 15. how much time, if any, does Mr. Walsh have? He's out of time. Okay, Dr. Tom Williams, followed by Mr. Herman.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Sorry, good afternoon. Dr. Tom Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council board member and great-grand-uncle of a 19-year-old. This rule would tell her that she cannot smoke cigarettes in the city of Los Angeles. She's old enough to go to war. She's old enough to be on her own. Why have this for the city of Los Angeles? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Herman, item 15.
So, Mr. B, we're talking about the Corrett's and bond in motion here for age smoking. That the legal age for one can purchase tobacco cigarettes was and is and could be 18, has now become 21. And I advise anyone, Mr. B, not to smoke. No. Say no to the kids. No, kids, don't smoke. It's bad for you. Thank you for that response. And again, as we listen on, you know, Herb Wesson is a horrible smoker because when he throws his smoke buds out in the front of City Hall, I have to pick them up on a daily basis.
You're not on the subject. The subject deals with raising the age for voters.
Tobacco cigarettes. That's it. Raising the purchase of tobacco cigarettes because, once again, it's called taxation without proper representation. And that's the reason why we Americans, USA, homegrown Trump, is talking about the legal age one can purchase tobacco. And I want to say to Trump, thank you, Trump, for making it possible that tobacco cigarettes should be 21. Because, Mr. Trump, you've always been a success in giving us advice about not smoking, and you're running the election for presidency.
You're off subject, Mr. Herman. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, members, now let's prepare. Mr. Herman, you are disrupting this meeting. Would you turn off his time? He is disrupting this meeting again. Let us prepare. He's continuing. Get away from the podium, please. Now let's vote on this item. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay, that brings us to item 1. Item 1, is there Benjamin, last name begins with an A, Benjamin. Arturo. Mr. Previn.
Yes, it's Eric Previn, and I signed up on one case, or you continued it, but I guess you're in a particularly charitable mood since you completely violated the Brown Act by
No, you're not on the subject. You are not on the subject. Now, I'm going to give you a chance to get back on the subject. You want to speak on these items, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to speak on 1K, which is a lien against for 41.
Yeah, but we've continued that item.
Hold me up on, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Previn. Okay, he is disrupting the meeting, trying to speak on an item that is not even before us. So let's prepare to vote. Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
All right, that brings us to?
Mr. President, that brings us to general public comment.
Okay, Mr. Previn. Is this Omar Baldwin?
Sir, how are you feeling today? It is Eric Previn from CD2. I just want to be sure that you're okay. You just called me up on 1K and then told me I couldn't speak on it, that we're losing it here, sir. Now, I understand it is confusing, and this morning there was a committee meeting on the Olympics. I tried to speak on it at the last city council meeting on Wednesday. You denied both, and then you gave me the 1-minute slot but you gave other people 2 minutes on different items, and I had a lot to say. So I'm flummoxed by what's happening here, sir. And I know you're trying to put forward the transparency hat as we put ourselves into this Olympic bid. We have to do a little better, sir. I don't want to be critical of the big guy, but this is completely unacceptable. I mean, my whole interest in this has been pushed aside by silly procedural stuff, and I have to do that because there are 10 million residents in LA County. Many of them live in LA City. We all have a stake in this. A lot of people are boosters, but if you're worried about dissent, there's going to be some, okay? People are going to say, this is outrageous. $925 million, $1,000 million is going to be from the private side and $75 million from the city side.
Thank
the Olympic
you,
Village.
Mr. Previn. So we're looking for Mr. Baldwin. Omar Baldwin, please come forward. Followed by Dr. Tom Williams, please come forward. Followed by, I think it's a Gwen Scott, maybe. Come forward. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Omar Baldwin. I'm founder and CEO of Peace Please Incorporated. We're a startup small business right now. We're fundraising to provide services to the city, to the state, and to the nation, and to the world. Our ultimate goal is peace, a peace nation, to build a new peace society for everyone. How we do that, we'll purchase about 7 square miles of land and hopefully gain sovereignty, and we'll hopefully talk with the Senate and the Congress so they can sign off on our land. Our land will be U.S. territory, and since we will be a nonprofit by then, we will hopefully work with the Home Depot to provide us with wood and different services to help build this new peace society. And it'll cost a lot of money because land isn't cheap, so I think the land will cost about like $500 million or something like that, but we'll be able to fundraise that money within the next 30 years, hopefully, and then we'll get it started, and hopefully everybody will have a peace society by the time I'm 50.
Thank you, sir. If we could get Dr. Tom Williams, Gwen Scott, and Mr. Walsh. Please, someone come forward, Mr. Dr. Williams.
Okay. Dr. Tom Williams, Sierra Club Transportation Committee and LA 32 Neighborhood Council Board member. Basically, Caltrans is doing it to us yet again. In the SR 710 surplus properties or excess property sales, they have created regulations that are completely unintelligible to most people, fraught with all sorts of interpretations that would penalize the existing tenants, previous owners, and those people who have been displaced by Caltrans before, even now. We've suffered for 30 years with Caltrans as being our slumlord, biggest one. Over 100 different properties being occupied by affordable populations. So we're quite concerned about the city not.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. And Mr. Walsh, Ms. Scott, don't let these guys take your spot, so you be ready the next time. Go right ahead, Mr. Walsh.
Okay. Expunge city council approval. I'm talking to the international community. I'm telling you, they're very wealthy people in the city, and if they voted in that this city is on the hook, we will go to the ballot. We will collect signatures, and we will take ourselves off the hook, leaving the International Olympic Committee exposed. This is a crazy city. Go to Gay Paris, where my great-grandfather spoke French in the 19th century. Stay away from L.A. It's the rape capital of the world, and I'm telling you right now, the people out there will decide on the ballot whether we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars in cost overruns while the rest of the world gets a free ride on the Olympics. See you in the voting booth.
Thank you. Miss Gwen Scott, please come forward, followed by Brian. Brian, are you still? Barajas. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Miss Scott.
Good afternoon, everyone, and City Councilman.
Speaking to the mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Gwen Scott, and I'm an advocate, social worker from Northern California, like I stipulated, since I've been down here 11 years. I would like to talk about the issue about the 2025 Olympics. I think that would be good. I don't know if I'd be here, but maybe my grandkids could be here and watch it, and everyone else to create and generate jobs. The second issue I wanted to talk about is the homeless issue. I was walking the streets of Los Angeles on 5th Street where all the tents are. It is blocking the sidewalks. We do definitely need to do something about that because it's really nasty, stinky. We need bathrooms, garbage cans. We need to get more money generated to LASA, to SRO, Skid Row Housing. And I also want to make a recommendation for the Downtown Women's Center that's strictly for women's, and the Hippie Kitchen that been feeding the homeless on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Tuesdays, Thursdays.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Barajas.
Well, I think one of the dilemmas that we're facing as a society is that a lot of people believe that because of the markets recovering, so-called, a lot of people don't understand that the way the market recovers these days is you pump it full of money instead of building, again, the deal here would be building a physical, productive economy. So, just like during the Great Depression, or before it, which led into it, markets go up, markets collapse, and what happens? Well, you need a president of the United States that has a system that can deal with the crisis. In other words, we are still dealing with a crisis of the mind. As long as people believe that the market goes up, and that's a good thing, they really haven't looked at the physical production of your economy, which actually produces a market.
Thank you, and that concludes general public comment. Mr. Clerk, what else do we have before? Is there a card that I'm missing? Okay, so Mr. Clerk, you're now disrupting the meeting. Let's, what's before this body?
Mr. President, Council has motions for posting and referral.
We're still this meeting is still being disrupted by Mr. Herman. Those items are posted and referred. Members' announcements. Announcements, members. Mr. Dawson.
Thank you so much. Tonight, for the second Friday night in Martin Luther King Park, last week we were so happy to have the movies in the park, joined by Council District 10 and our Council District President. This Saturday, we'll have the annual Power Fest at Martin Luther King Park beginning at 1 o'clock. We'll have art displays, live music, a kid zones, a community resource fair, and healthy cooking demonstrations. Also, we'll be treated to a free performance by Grammy Award-winning jazz artist Terrace Martin, graduate of Locke High School in the 8th District, and a world-renowned musician.
Thank you. Mr. Bonin.
President, I want to make two announcements. Tomorrow morning, Assemblywoman Autumn Burke and I are co-hosting a community health fair at Oakwood Park in Venice from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. And then tomorrow night, one of our last summer movie shows at Culver Slauson Park in Delray, E.T., the Extraterrestrial.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Price?
Also would like to invite neighbors to come out to the movies at Fred Roberts Rec Center tonight. We're going to be showing the Lego movie. Be there or be square.
Okay. In fact, Mr. Price, we'd like to invite the residents of CD10 to Benny Potter Park, where we are showing how to train your dragon too. So come out and join us, free refreshments and raffles. Mr. Cedillo?
Memory. Close the memory.
Okay, then would everybody please rise? Everyone in the council chambers, please rise. Quit disrupting the meeting. This is a time to show respect. You're still disrupting the meeting, Mr. Herman. Show some respect. Okay, Mr. Cedillo.
Yes, members, all of us have these volunteers in our community, people who show up at all our events, people who are sitting at the table, people who come early and do setup, stay late, and close down all our community events, people who spend hours on neighborhood councils productively and positively. And they are, like us, people who have families. And there is a particular man in my district, Heinrich Kiefer. And he's a great volunteer, and he's involved in all our activities, Neighborhood Council, Southwest Museum. He did a lot of work last week at our jazz festival. Omnipresent. I think he's a carpenter by training, but he lost his mother recently. And you tell the character of a person by looking at their parents. And his mother, Victoria Carpenter Kiefer, was born of Armenian parents in Cuba in March 11th, 1929, and then they moved to the United States, to Southern California in the 40s. He lost her just recently, August 14th, in Sherman Oaks. She came here, created her family, was a housekeeper until the untimely death of her husband, and then she continued to raise her family. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And when you look at the service and commitment that his mother was engaged in, using her skills, her bilingual skills, as a translator, you understand why he is such a do-gooder. And so I would hope that all of us can have a moment of silence and thoughtfulness for him as he goes through this difficult passing. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Bonin, any other adjournings? I'm now looking to my right. Okay, members, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for all your work.